Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of the FutureSox Podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me this evening is the managing editor of FutureSox, James Fox. How are you, James?
Hey, Ian. What's up, man?
Sick of watching the White Sox already.
Yeah, well, it's a FutureSox podcast. This is what I used to tell Mike, especially when, I used to joke about when we were with Sox Machine. I'm like, oh, this is, let Jim and Josh do this, and we would do the minor stuff. And now we have games to talk about. So,
Thank God.
yeah, right.
Yeah, so the White Sox are 1-8, but as James has mentioned, the minor league season is fully operational. I have some video here that I'm going to bring up. For those of you who are listening on podcast form, know that we stream on Sunday nights on YouTube and Twitch, and we do provide a lot of video content. So hop in the chat and say hello, subscribe, like it, please. And without further ado, let's move to Lucas Gordon making his first start of the year for the Canapolis Cannonballers. And there is no audio. They just decided to forego audio in their first game in Charleston. So it's just you and me, James. But Lucas
Nice.
Gordon looked pretty good. Can't complain.
So Lucas Gordon was 6th-round pick in last year's draft. I think he got like 200K or something. I think I, I don't know how much of a huge like big league future, but he was a very polished college lefty, so he's definitely going to carve like in A ball for sure, and then kind of determine what he is after that.
Yeah, I think he struck out 7 or 8 and only allowed like 2 hits. There is Wilfred Veras just decimating this pitch and sending it to the moon for the second home run of the season.
Has he been in right or has he been left only?
I think he's been in right, and either Ellis or somebody else has been in left.
Yeah.
Burke.
Okay.
There's Drew Thorpe, who looked very good in his first outing. That changeup is just disgusting.
Yeah, Drew Thorpe looked really good the other night.
I think these guys just have no chance against that changeup. And this is Double-A. This is not the young kids.
Yeah, I mean it's a Double-A Southern League, man. Like like this is big time. And we all, we get the questions like, is 91, 92 going to play in the big leagues? Like, well, we'll find out, right? But
Yep.
this is mostly what I expect from him in Birmingham.
There's Edgar Caro with his home run. Birthday home run.
It's a promising start. 3-0 Barons.
Yep. And then there's Seth Keener.
Seth Keener, too good for low A. So I know it's a full rotation in Winston, but he could force his way up there, I think. I mean, he's just nasty, too. He was in the bullpen at Wake Forest because of how loaded they were. But the White Sox feel like he's a definite starter.
Charleston probably does, too. And this was sent to us by Samuel Zavala's father. He tagged us on Twitter. Here's Samuel Zavala's home run from earlier today. He crushed that thing.
Yeah, Samuel Zavala might be pretty solid. That's it's tough to kind of talk about the best part of that trade because I think both of us were pretty excited about Drew Thorpe. But Zavala, could be the thing that really puts that one over the top.
Jonathan Cannon looked fairly decent after the first inning against the Tides, which we'll get to that in our next segment, which is minor league takeaways. There's Colson Montgomery putting the finishing touches on his 3 for 5 for today with his solid double to the wall. There's Nick Nastrini from earlier this week. Didn't fare as well. think he gave up 4 runs in 3 innings. But that lineup for the Tides, holy cow.
Yeah, and I think they mentioned that like Getz said something about Nastrini being sick possibly, and his stuff was down a little bit. So obviously we can get into that a little bit just with the White Sox not having announced a starter for tomorrow, which is interesting.
Yeah. There's Jake Eder from earlier today. Pitched pretty well. The first inning was rough, a couple walks, but after that, everything kind of worked itself out. Tim Elko just absolutely decimating a ball off the scoreboard.
Yeah, the Barons team is fun. There's a pitching prospect going every night, and there's a
Yeah.
lineup full of guys. I think it's 11 or 12 guys that we could put on a top 30.
Yeah, and you got Connor McCullough here, who came in relief of Eder and went 4 scoreless and struck out 5 or 6
Yeah, and
guys.
his stuff looks a little better, like in relief too. So
All right, well, there's that. So, moving to minor league takeaways from this weekend, I guess overall for the week, because the Knights played the Tides this week. I guess we start in AAA. Colson Montgomery, I believe he had 7 or 8 hits this week,
yes.
and he had a fairly decent week. Pitching on the Knights, going against that just unfair Norfolk Tides lineup. You just gotta kind of feel bad for him, and just I know everybody's panicking watching the Knights, thinking that they've got another White Sox down there in AAA. While that might be true, I would say that this is an unfair representation of what you're going to see for the rest of the year out of the Knights.
Yeah, I think so too. This isn't like one of your night squads with 2 starting pitchers. Where it's like just embarrassing every night. Like the Norfolk Tides are absolutely insane. Like, I mean, this is why I think us and other outlets talked all off season about like finding a way to trade with the Orioles, right? Because like you could like take give me 2 of any of those 5, like like, and it would have been fine. And like they're gonna have a decision to make at some point. I know it's not an Orioles podcast, but like like their big league team's good too. Like, how is Heston Kjerstad not in the big leagues? Like what like what are we doing? So, and even like the way it looks right now, like if the White Sox needed a reliever, we kind of talked off air. Prelander Baroa and Bailey Horn, are both on the 40 man. Like you couldn't bring either of those guys up right now, but it might be easier if you did for them. Like they'd be like, thank God. Like like I don't want to see those guys ever again.
Yeah, the Tides were not merciful this weekend. I mean, as Heston Kjerstad put up possibly the most dominant 3 days of minor league baseball I've ever seen. I think he had 6 home runs and 20 RBIs in a 3-game span. I mean, it was just absolutely absurd. And yeah, the puns about the Tide going out.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the Knights were just waiting for
What if they played
them to leave.
what if they played their home games in Charlotte, that team?
Oh man.
I mean, because
I mean,
their pitching sucks too. I mean, the Knights had like 10 or 11 runs a few times. Like you should win most nights. They were like going toe to toe with them. But like when you're scoring 20 and you have position players pitching, it's kind of ridiculous.
yeah, the if you guys haven't seen it, look up the Danny Mendick strikeout from the 10th inning the other night. That was, they're going into extra innings, and they've used up their pitching so much in the series that they're trying to get a win, tied 10-10 going into extras against the Tides, and they have decimated their pitching staff so badly that they only have Danny Mendick to go out on the mound and take the extras. And he surrendered the 11th and winning run, but he did get a strikeout, and it was on a nice 38-mile-an-hour ephus pitch, which was fairly entertaining. Yeah, just the whole series was fairly ugly. They finally managed to scrape a win out today. And oddly enough, the I'd say probably the Tide's top 3 pitchers are generally pretty good. I know the one that they faced today that they actually ended up beating, I believe is their top pitching prospect that's in their minor league system right now. And he was, he looked pretty good, but he did give up some runs, and I don't know. It was just a fairly ugly week, and I was expecting it to not be fun, but I was not expecting it to be, 26-11 beatdowns.
Well, and they're over immediately. And look, it's not like the Sox have all their pitching prospects there, right? I mean, they get to face a Chad Kuhl and a Jake Woodford, and it doesn't really matter that much, but I mean, it's just like demoralizing for the guys there that it does matter for, right? I mean, it'd be a lot worse if it's Jake Eder and Jairo Iriarte and all these guys that we have some hope for getting absolutely shredded, and it's not, but so and Cannon held his own a little bit. And
Yeah,
even Nastrini was pretty bad throwing 93, and like he still wasn't horrible. So,
yeah.
bullpen though, bad, 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 bad.
Ooh, yeah. No lead has been safe so far this offseason. I think obviously that's going to improve as time goes on here. I it's going to take some of those guys obviously some time to get comfortable in their roles and whatever. But yeah, this week was really ugly. So we got a question, including the White Sox team. How many bad White Sox minor league teams are there? Um, I would say probably the toughest
Two?
watch this weekend. I mean, the Knights were obviously tough. They just kind of got housed, so that was not fun. But I want to see them against somebody else other than the Tides. I question the offensive output in Canapolis, how that's going to turn out this year, because there were a lot of very low hit totals for the Ballers this weekend.
Yeah, and that team's just weird. Like there's a lot of super young guys, and then there's college guys like Riku Nishida, like has been on base a million times, but that doesn't mean they're gonna like score a bunch of runs. So there's no power on that team, which is kind of tough. So yeah, that one's not great, but the pitching's pretty good. So like the games could be low scoring. I think Winston has enough to be okay. I mean, look, the pitching staffs at all three of the other affiliates are pretty good. Like they should keep you in games, at least the starters. I mean, the Sox have spent a lot of resources on starting pitchers, whether that's via the draft or like some of their trades. So the rotations are all pretty good. So they shouldn't be getting like blown out in most places. But I will say, like, there's a staggering lack of power like across the system. Like to me, anyways. I don't know if that's got to be a focus. I know you don't want to just like take a bunch of like first base mashers and drafts and stuff, but I mean they don't have enough power hitters. So I don't know that's one of them. I guess, and then hopefully what we'll have Winston Salem video going forward, right now that they're not facing Asheville. So
Yeah, they have their home opener on Tuesday, so we'll finally get some video on them that's not from Sammy Zavala's dad, which will be nice to be able to see other prospects. I mean, no disrespect to him, obviously, and very thankful to see those hits, but like to get eyes on some of these other guys. And yeah, the Canapolis thing. Uh, it seems like it's a bunch of very young guys and then some college guys. That's what it
yeah.
seems like, and that's the kind of output that you end up getting out of
Mhm.
Canapolis's offense. The starting pitching did look fairly decent though, and
You had Keener go, you had Gordon, right? So
yep, and Buckenstedt went today, and overall, he had some bad defensive plays behind him. He went 4 and struck out 6, and he looked fairly decent. I'd say it was probably about like 70%. His runs were probably about 70% his issue. But
yeah.
yeah, he didn't look bad. And it's the arms look like they're fairly decent in
Well, and I think
Canapolis.
Canapolis, like one of their highest upside guys, hasn't even gone yet. Eldrin Batista, he likely goes Tuesday or Wednesday, is my guess. I don't know how quickly Grant Taylor will be there, but like he's pretty interesting too, obviously. So yeah, that rotation's decent. And then I think there's some guys in rookie ball that you'll see there later. So yeah, I mean, and look, Canapolis will be like when you do the second half of Canapolis, it's going to be a lot of guys they draft in July on that Canapolis team. So because there won't be rookie ball at that time. So yeah, that team will look a lot different like as the season moves along.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that, you know? I mean, because we're in a completely different scenario than we've been in ever before.
Yeah.
So with the rookie ball ending, right before the draft, or it's right around the draft anyway.
Yeah, it's like right there. So then guys will sign, they'll go to Arizona and basically play in like fake games. And then whenever they're like ready, they'll just go to Canny, is my guess. And then like if you took a George Wolkow again, right? Like a super toolsy high school guy, they just stay at the complex for the rest of the year and like we might get some backfield footage or something. But I think the biggest deal with that, and I know we didn't really mean to get into this, but they just with the amount of college pitchers that throw as much as they do, I think like scouting directors just felt like they didn't have enough pitching to run complex leagues that long because you draft these guys, but it doesn't mean you're throwing them a ton. Like even like Seth Keener, I think threw 7 innings or something. Like like after he was drafted, you just don't throw these guys that often.
So this has been, this is completely off topic here, but I want to mention it since I don't want to forget about it. Your feelings on the amount of, we had Yuri Perez go down in Florida. Now we've got Strider having a damaged UCL. Some people are calling, the MLB Players Association is trying to petition to get the pitch clock taken off. Your thoughts on the pitch clock in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think the bigger issue is like just how these guys train, and you just look like, yeah, our bodies are not meant to do this, right? And I don't know if you ever read The Arm. It's great. I mean, it's more than 10 years old now, but I mean, Jeff Passan like wrote an entire book on this stuff. And at the end of it, he said, we have no idea. Like, because we don't like, and I see people like they look at pitching motions or like, oh, that guy's going to get hurt. Look how he throws. Like, we don't know. We have no idea. The only thing we know is that like, if guys throw 100 with nasty breakers, like they're probably going to have Tommy John at some point. Like they just probably are. And like you bake it in to like when you select pitchers, right? It's kind of like why if you have 10, you have two, like we have 10 pitching prospects we're really excited about. Hopefully 2 of them are pretty good and like never get hurt. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think the pitch clock's good. Like, could it be like, is it causal? I don't know. Right. I think it might have an effect. But I don't think the pitch clock's the reason why guys are getting hurt. I think the reason why guys are getting hurt is because everybody's just amped up to like go max velo and everything all the time, and it's just we're just not designed to do this because there's going to be more of them. Like this is why you make the Dylan Cease trade, right? And we like that trade, but I think a lot of people kind of thought like, oh, take him into the season and get more, which I get, but like I mean, I was scared to death of doing that because of this, and he blew out in high school, but it doesn't mean he won't again.
Yeah.
It's just like not worth it. So, but yeah, no, it's rough, man. You don't like seeing like stars go down, but I mean, it's almost just like it happens, and you're like, okay, well, have the surgery and put them back out there, right? Because we're just like accustomed to seeing these guys like just be fine, like 15 months later or whatever it is.
Yeah, and the only team with a record worse than the White Sox right now are the Marlins at 1-9, with one extra loss. And they just had Yuri Perez go down. They had lost Sandy Alcantara as well, so they're down their 2 stud pitch, 2 out of their 3 best pitchers. So I mean, it shouldn't really be a shock to them either.
You know what their problem is though, right?
Oh, tell me, but I think
Too
I know.
too many White Sox on their team.
Yep, I mean that's
That
entirely possible.
they
The
have
clubhouse
they
culture is
they
just
have
doomed.
they have too many former White Sox. Like they should have
Yeah,
known better.
the culture is just totally shredded. I mean, that's why we got rid of Jake Berger and let Tim Anderson walk, was because of culture. And so now their culture by de facto is also
Well,
bad.
they also have the ghost of Avi Garcia.
Oh, true. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I forgot about him.
yeah.
So a guy that I talked to on Twitter, occasionally. His name is Mory Brown. His Twitter ad is at biz ball Mory, and he writes for Forbes. And I retweeted one of his tweets earlier, and some very interesting thoughts here on this whole pitch clock versus whatever's causing these injuries. And he says the use of fastball is down with increase in sliders and sweepers. We're seeing increased velocity of stuff with movement, and this is the ongoing trend. Also, the gun is becoming more of a focus starting in high school. TJ surgery on kids is a cottage industry. All adds up. Says he talked to Pat Gillick, uh, and he got very serious when I asked him about contract lengths on pitchers due to durability issues. This was probably 2008. He said giving pitchers deals of 5 years is not something anyone should be doing. I mean, that right there. I mean, like the amount of people that are going slider first or 50%, like 50-50 fastball and slider, that's probably has a lot to do with it, I would guess.
Well, and it's easy for like your Astros people, and like when this whole thing took over, right? When it's like your slider's great, throw it more. Like I get it, like it makes a lot of sense. But I think there's just like a reason why things were more traditional, like in the past, probably, right? And I don't know, the whole thing is crazy. Like you got guy like Yuri Perez. The Marlins were so careful with him. They did the whole piggyback thing. They're doing the whole thing that the White Sox are doing now with Noah Schultz, right? Like, oh, you can't let these guys throw this many pitches or this many innings or this or that or whatever. And like it doesn't matter. Like it just doesn't. Like some guys are just gonna blow out, like because that's it's just like the way that it is. And then you have to take your medicine and hope they come back like the same or better, or you know what I mean, or close to that. So, and the Sox clearly haven't been afraid of it. Like in the draft specifically, they've actually like targeted guys because, it's a bit of a market inefficiency. Like Paulette was supposed to be a top 20 pick, and Grant Taylor probably would have been too, and they get him a little bit later, and you got to wait for him, but we'll see. So, but yeah, I mean, there's just so many guys have it younger and younger.
Yeah, Keith Law talked about this on his his top, White Sox thoughts, on the prospects. Said that, one of the things that he's always worried about with guys that have TJ in college and drafting them without them having thrown again is not knowing what you're going to get out of these guys that were pre TJ, like spin rate, darlings that everybody loved their stuff on, because you don't know what they're going to come back with and don't know if that same spin rate is still going to be there and if it's still got the same movement. So,
well, yeah, and even like it with I don't know, the thing we did before, is that the first rebuild or no? Is that what it's called? Like Dylan Cease and so like Dylan Cease and Lucas Giolito both had it in high school. Like Dylan Cease was a 6th rounder. I mean, he was a top 20 talent in that class. I remember it at the time, but he went in the 6th round, and the Cubs paid him because he had TJ. And Lucas Giolito went 16th overall and then had it, I believe. He was supposed to be a top 5 pick too. So this has been common. But there's been a few like heavy hitters this week, right? So it's like in the news for sure.
yeah, I think that was the rebuild, and I think right now we're in the re-rebuild.
The re-rebuild,
So,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the terminology, the correct terminology.
With the re-rebuild manager.
Oh man, yeah, and it's like he's your favorite guy, so we'll talk about him. And would you rather have Ricky Renteria or Pedro Grifol?
Oh, dude, I would fast forward it and just keep Ricky this whole time if I could. If I knew they were hiring Tony. Because look, at the time, and you and I weren't together for this, obviously, but like I thought it was fine moving on from Ricky to make your push for like the long-term manager, right? But when I thought it was going to be Alex Cora or AJ Hinch, I was totally fine with it. And then I was like, wait, you're going to do what? Just bring Ricky back. Like it would have been fine. At least he was likable.
Yeah.
He would like cook food and stuff for like the media and like like whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he got smoked in Oakland in that playoff series, 100%. Like he was way out of his depth in that playoff series, but I would have much rather seen him come back the next year and had a bitch fest about that. Complaining about whether that Rick Renteria came back.
Yeah.
I would have been much happier talking about that all the time instead
I
of
know.
Tony La Russa.
Well, the crazy thing about that was like, if Crochet doesn't get hurt, that might have worked. Like that plan might have worked. That was like not a terrible plan. You
Yeah,
get you get them you get them to set up their lineup with all the lefties and then bring in Crochet. But then once he went down, they went to bad Rodon and all these. It was bad. That was really bad.
that's what I was going to bring
Yeah,
up. The
yeah.
Rodon thing was
He
just
was
like a
he
complete
was
head scratcher.
terrible,
Yeah,
and that's
he
where the
was.
next year we were all stunned at how good he was. Like, he was awesome. Like, I thought that guy was done.
Yeah, well, he certainly has not been that great the last 2 years. So we'll see how I don't know. We'll see how he finishes out this year. But he did have that 1 year for us. He was phenomenal. So in 21. So moving on to Birmingham. Obviously, very pleasant surprise. They had a 3-game sweep of Chattanooga this weekend, and we saw Thorpe, we saw Eder today, and we saw who
Jairo
was it yesterday?
Iriarte, yeah,
Jairo Iriarte yesterday,
yeah,
which we didn't get a ton of innings out of either or any of those 3 starters, but the bullpen looked so good it didn't matter. So
yeah.
we had Addison Coffee last night look like the Addison Coffee that we were hoping that we were getting, and for the last month last year, and then the Arizona Fall League. His command went all over the place, but he came out and threw 17 out of 22, I think, for strikes yesterday. So, and then the lineup, it's not quite the Norfolk Tides, obviously, but in Double A, it's looked pretty good.
Yeah, and one of the underrated guys, the guy that Jim Callis told us the White Sox love like quite a bit, Brooks Baldwin, man, he's playing well for that team. And I don't know how many guys you would talk about like before you even get to him. Like, that's how kind of loaded that team is. And you got Carroll there, and you got Brian Ramos, and all the outfielders and fan favorite Tim Elko, and Brooke Baldwin just you know keeps taking his vitamins. It's like, my God, like he had a big day today.
Yeah, like the home run to center was substantial. It was really well struck, and yeah, he's looked really good, and he's taking walks, and we've got Terrell Tatum with like a 33% walk rate right now. He's got like 6 walks already or something like that this season in like I don't know, like 16 plate appearances or something like that. And I mean, and like the weird thing is like you got Brian Ramos who's batting 100 right now,
Yeah.
and they're still managing to do this.
When Wilfred Veras has real power, right? And just the fact that he might be able to functionally stand in an outfield corner makes him a prospect, right? Like, if he was first base only, he's kind of still a prospect because he can mash, but like, you have to mash. You just have to. Like, we're seeing it with Andrew Vaughn right now. But I mean, if he can stand in left field and be okay, I mean, he's a prospect. Like, Wilfred Veras is pretty good, and he's young too.
Yeah, the amount of torque that guy generates from his midsection for those for his swing is just prodigious, I guess you could say. Crazy easy power. I mean, I guess you could call it easy, but you could also say that he's just swinging for the moon. But I mean, either way, he's connecting and it's going very far. So do you want to move on to the situation in Chicago? I mean, I know
Well,
you don't want to.
we can. I think we're remiss to not just mention. So I know there's like not really video. We tweeted a little bit about Noah Schultz. One of our Twitter followers drove over to Asheville, so we didn't have to. And I kind of talked to him in our FutureSox DMs. He was funny. He's like, "Well, when I realized like the tourists didn't have like cameras or whatever, he's like, I figured I'd just drive over, which is convenient, I guess, if you live there." So he took a bunch of video. I retweeted it all from the FutureSox account. I talked to some people that were at that start. That kid is absolutely filthy. 10 Ks and 4 innings. I think they do want him to throw more pitches than that. I was told 75 pitches, or no, I think it was, yeah, like 70 pitches or 4 innings. He went 4 innings and K'd 10 guys, and nobody had a chance. So we'll see. He's going to start every Saturday. Next week they're home, right, at Winston. So, I would imagine you'll have plenty of people there. I think Josh Norris, Baseball America, has already said that he's planning to be there. So I think when scouts and prospect writers and stuff know that he's starting every Saturday, that'll be a thing. Like Saturday nights with Noah Schultz on the internet, probably. So
Yeah, this
pretty interesting.
yeah, so for Schultz's line, and I tweeted about the line of it, but he was on a 75 pitch limit, or roughly around there, and he got through his 4 innings, his 4 up and down, and he went and threw 40 of 54 for strikes. He only needed 54 pitches to get through those 4 innings. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Well, he's not like one of these. It's not what you think, right? You think it's like this big, overpowering 6'9" guy that's like walking people, but like he doesn't. He doesn't pitch like a 6'9" guy. He just like throws nothing but strikes. Um, and then if he gets an advantageous count, like you can't hit the slider, so it's just like over, So it's look. I mean, you're talking. And I know the whole, like, there's a lot of people that think there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, and I get it, right? We just talked about the arm stuff, but I mean, if he does this all year, he's a top 10 prospect in baseball and the best left-handed starter in all of the minors. Like, he is that nasty.
It's wonderful to watch. I can't wait to get video and actually be able to watch the movement on the pitches. And so, as an aside here, I'm going to take this moment right now to complain about Charlotte. And I don't know who thought it was a good idea to move the center field camera into right center field, so you have an angled, a really weird angle from the pitcher to home plate. Blows my mind. It is like, it's awful. I don't know who decided on that camera angle, but it's terrible.
Did they also change the logo again?
Um, so they had the new uniforms last year.
Okay. So they're the same ones as last year then. Okay.
Yeah, as far as I
Yeah,
know.
I think
I'll
so.
look
Okay. They're just
again,
always
but
different.
yeah.
I feel like they're different colors. And I know minor league teams like always do this, right? Where they like whatever they have their theme nights or whatever. But yeah, I just feel like they're always in different. They're blue one year, and then they're gold, and then and then they're like whatever. But
Yeah, they're like the Oregon Ducks. They've got 35 different combinations of uniforms that they can wear.
that's how many relief pitchers they've used too so far on the
Oh
year,
my
like
gosh.
against the Norfolk Tides.
Holy cow. That was painful, because even the games that they were in the lead, I was like, there's no way that they're going to outslug the Tides. There's just no way. And then finally today, the Tides were like, all right, you know what? We're tired of scoring, double digit runs. We're just going to let you guys have this one.
Yeah,
And then, so
they
the
kept
White
they kept
Sox,
Peyton Burdick in check though, didn't they?
he hit a home run.
Did
I
he have
mean,
one? Okay. Well,
yeah, see, that's the thing about Peyton Burdick, is if he had stayed and gone to the Knights, he would have hit 15 home runs all year. He still might hit 15 home runs against Charlotte, or
yeah,
with against Charlotte this
yeah,
year, and probably hit like 25 total.
yeah,
Hit 10 off of everybody
yeah.
else. He loves hitting in Charlotte. White Sox 1-8, absolutely brutal to watch. They don't hit. The pitching's looked, as we said earlier, we thought that the pitching staff would probably be halfway decent. Unfortunately, nobody on the team wants to hit. Nobody is, and now you've got injuries, which are taking away a bunch of key components of the offense. So, because of these said injuries, there has had to be some shuffling around of the roster, meaning that they had to clear 40-man spots. So, what was that? On Tuesday, they traded Jose Rodriguez to the Phillies for cash.
Yes. Which basically means like they were going to lose him on waivers is my guess. The best offer they got is cash, right? So I could snarkily say right now that like look, like Major League Baseball kind of told you like what they thought Jose Rodriguez was worth because they had to put him on a 40 man spot, right? Like I'm not going to assume that the White Sox didn't shop him around the league first, right? So for whatever reason, like teams didn't feel like giving you like a low level prospect for him, and the White Sox took cash instead of losing him for nothing. That's not really the point though. So you can continue.
See, my personal opinion, I was not happy about it. And I had somebody comment to me that the other night Lenine Sosa took 3 walks in a game, and he's like, "Oh, that's why he's still here and Popeye's not." And I'm like, I got to look this up really quick. So I tallied up their walk percentages, their walk rate, and Jose Rodriguez walk rate was better. So I'm not really entirely sure. And me and you had talked about this, obviously off air about the possibility of there being something else going on, because we're trying to figure out why you would let a guy with 20 home runs coming off of a hamate injury and 30 plus stolen bases with a plus glove at second base, why you would just let a guy like that walk. And I still don't. I'm still kind of trying to figure, like,
Yeah.
wrap my head around it. I don't get it.
No, I mean it's weird. I mean, look, they clearly decided that like they've prioritized Lenny Sosa and Braden Shoemake over him, and they can't keep this many infielders. So like that I agree with. Like that we've talked about this for months, right? That's not the problem though. The problem is for people like you, and look, like I'm a little bit indifferent on it. Like I get it, right? Like there's publications that ranked Jose Rodriguez like in the back third, like 25 to 30 on a middle of the pack system, right? So is it the end of the world? No, but he has like a lot of fans. Like cut Paul DeYoung and just play Sosa and these other guys and then keep Rodriguez on the 40 man. That's the argument, right? So yeah, like I get why they did it. They don't have any freaking 40 man spots, and he's not ready to help you. Um, but the problem is prioritizing like all these veterans on a team that's going to lose like 105 games. So then you lose Jose Rodriguez, right? Like he might be nothing. This might be Luis Alexander Basabe when everybody got mad about that too, and he's nothing. Like fine, but it's just like a team in the White Sox position probably shouldn't be doing this. Like it's just doesn't really make sense.
That's exactly my point. Is my fear was going to be that the Oakland A's were going to pick him up on waivers and immediately just plug him into the lineup right away, because they've got nothing over there really, and watch him end up being like a 115 WRC player on that terrible team, and say, we still have Paul DeYoung in the lineup, and we have Braden Shoemake, who has, I know he's your newest favorite player, James, but he has gone back to who he was, and he's hitting 185.
Yeah. Well, and even him, like, look, I understand playing Braden Shoemake against right-handed pitching in a lost season to see, right? I don't understand playing Paul DeYoung right now. Like, if that was your placeholder on a team that was going to be 500 until your top prospect is ready, I get it. But they're awful. There's no reason to see Paul DeYoung anymore. There's just not. So, and look, Jose Rodriguez probably isn't ready. Like, go look at Charlotte. It's 90 plate appearances at Charlotte with a 2% walk rate. I get it, right? But it's like you said, it's all after the hamate injury. I don't know. Do you think it's weird that it's Philly or no? Is it just kind of random? I mean, they optioned him to their AA affiliate. So they clearly just kind of like him a little bit, but look, he's on their 40 man. Like the next time they make a big league move, like is he in DFA limbo again, or does somebody else go? I don't know. Who knows? I assumed he'd go to a worse team, kind of like you were saying. Like it would be Oakland or somebody that would like let him play a little bit.
Yeah, I found it kind of strange. I didn't understand that whole thing, and so with Charlotte, we talk about how the bullpen's been. So it didn't shock me when Alex Speas was taken off the 40 man and also DFA'd, because he hadn't been pitching particularly well. But then again, we're talking about 8 games into the season or whatever, 7 games into the season when he was DFA'd. And so now you find out that he's also been traded for cash considerations. Um,
I mean, he got rocked too by Norfolk, right?
he did, yeah.
Like,
And he gave up a home run against the Redbirds as well
yeah.
in the last
But
series.
but I mean, couldn't you argue that, like, I mean, just throw him in the majors instead of whoever? Dominic Leone, Brian Shaw. Like, look, I'm not going to sit here and argue that Bailey Horn and Prelander Baroa and Alex Speas are like ready to pitch out of a big league bullpen. Like, I can't really make that argument. But I mean, he has way more upside than guys that are in your current bullpen. And those are guys that you're going to have to get rid of probably soon anyway. And you don't have anybody to replace him with. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, you're going to give up a kid to add Justin Anderson next week. You know, I mean, this is just kind of the position you're in. Like, they don't have, like, John Brebbia is in a walking boot and he's on the White Sox because they literally don't have anybody to bring up for him. So my guess is, like, he's a roster move tomorrow for whoever's starting, and then they'll figure out the rest later. You know what I mean? It'll just be like a day-to-day thing. Like, you know, people are like, oh, they're playing short or whatever. Like, they literally don't have anybody to bring up unless you want to see Bailey Horn right now.
Yeah, they've done quite the job with their 40-man roster. And you know, we talked about this before any of this was necessarily an issue, that they were going to have a hard time getting, you know, they were going to have to figure out who they were going to get rid of off the 40-man. And it just so happens that they waited until we're in the second week of the season, or, you know, second week of the season here, to finally start figuring out things with this 40-man, because they kind of have to now because of the injuries.
Well, they were going to have to trim eventually. Like, we said that, especially if you keep adding stupid veterans for no reason. Like, Bob Nightingale today mentions Tommy Pham again. Why? Like, what does that do for you? Like, I like Tommy Pham. Like, I think he's interesting. Like, he's decent, you know. But why? Like, what is the reason for that? That makes no sense to me. And then you're gonna get rid of somebody else that we're probably gonna like complain about them getting rid of. It just like doesn't make sense. Stop. Just be awful with kids. Like, it is what it is. You got to take your medicine at this point.
Yeah. So this, you know, in the last week, more or less, you've had Eloy Jimenez is now injured, and now Luis Robert has his hip flexor back from a few years ago, and they're saying that it could be anywhere from 1 to 2.5 months, essentially, that he's going to be out. And, you know, as you mentioned, John Brebbia is in a walking boot. Max Stassi is in his rehab stint down in Charlotte, and he is looking extremely mediocre. And you got to make sure that he gets back. So you got to keep that 40-man spot warm. Where are we at here with the White Sox? Are we going to? Do you think that they're going to go and start jettisoning some of these older players to start playing some younger players, just because? I mean, this team's not going to win anything. The fans are fed up.
Yeah, I mean,
The laughing stock of Major League Baseball. At what point do you stop pretending that this is not a complete tear down to the studs and reworking of the entire roster?
yeah, I mean, it does. I just, you know, like, I think I don't know if I said it on air or off, but like Nicky Lopez, right? Has some utility. Like, if that guy's your utility guy and you have him as like your whatever, he can play some second, some short, he can be on the team, right? But Paul DeYoung, that doesn't make any sense. I know they like Martin Maldonado for what he like brings to the young catchers, but like the young pitchers, but like he's bad. I would be fine with Corey Lee getting the majority of the time. I think Oscar Colas should probably come back at some point and play right field, at least against righties, and you keep playing Dominic Fletcher. You know, you're probably stuck playing Benintendi, and you hope that he plays his way out of it, and, you know, somebody will take half of his contract or something from you. But I mean, other than that, like, You know, like I don't need to see Kevin Pillar. Like I don't really need to see Robbie Grossman. Like what's Robbie Grossman going to bring you back if he's good? You know, like if you want to DH him against lefties, like while Eloy's gone, fine, right? But like who cares? Like we just like don't need to see any of these guys. And the bullpens are the same way. But I will say, like, it's not like they have a bunch of prospect relievers that are like kicking down the door that are ready, right? It's like bad teams have Brian Shaws and Dominic Leone's. It's hopefully not for that long. And I mean, the disappointing thing there is they do have some flippable bullpen guys that are decent. Like Steven Wilson looks pretty good, and Brebbia looked good too before he got hurt. You know, it's just you got 9 guys in the bullpen, and there's a few of them that you can't throw, and you really have nobody to replace them.
Yeah, the only guy who hasn't given up a run, I believe, in Charlotte that's pitched so far this season has been Justin Anderson.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have a 40-man spot.
100%. So you'd have to add him to the 40-man. So like essentially, which they could do, by the way. Like they could tomorrow DL Brebbia and call up. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if what did I say? Jared Schuster's the starter because he didn't start in Charlotte this week and he's on the 40-man. Just start Jared Schuster in Cleveland. Like it's fine, whatever. And then if you DFA'd Leone and brought up Justin Anderson or you know, fine. Like that, like those are, but that like we're 10 games in. Like like this is crazy. You know? So like you're not adding Nick Nastrini. He's not on the 40-man. Like they can't do that. Like I don't think it's Brad Keller. So you know, like it's just it's rough. And look, they can't do this many more times. You know, like they decided Jose Rodriguez wasn't that important and Alex Speas was expendable. But I mean, if you look on the 40-man, I mean, you got a lot of guys protected on there that like aren't going to help you. You Jake Eders of the world and you know, Drew Thorpe and Iriarte and some of these guys. Like they're just they have to be on there. So you have a bunch of guys that can't really help you. It's a little bit difficult.
A positive thing that I can say besides Justin Anderson down in AAA, Chad Kuhl, he's looked pretty good. He's looked serviceable. He was kind of one of those guys that everybody was just like, you know, kind of groaned about when we signed him. But I will say he's looked pretty good actually, and he like held the Tides in check today. He's looked great in his 2 appearances so far in Charlotte. So maybe he, you know, he might be one of those guys that's going to be one of those guys who ends up either they trade him for, I don't know, probably some more money because that's what Jerry seems to like to do as of late.
They got to pay for Tommy Pham, so
they got to pay for their soda and the soda machine for the players.
Didn't Tuki keep them in check somehow too?
No, he was terrible.
Oh, he was bad. Okay,
he walked like 4 or 5. I mean, he didn't allow a lot of runs in.
Yeah.
Well, let me preface that. So he let in somebody else's runs.
Yeah.
He didn't have,
Gotcha.
it didn't tack onto his ERA. So, but yeah, he walked a bunch of guys. You know, as soon as he came in, it was like a hit by pitch and like 2 walks and like a single or something like that.
Yeah.
So he gave up a bunch of runs, but they weren't his runs. So no harm, no foul.
How many of those guys are in the big leagues when the next time the Tides come back? I don't know. You know, I don't know how many spots they have, but yeah, like that. There was a fight at the bat rack in Charlotte because my goodness gracious.
Yeah, that the top 5 slots in the Tides order, they had something like a dozen home runs this week and like 40 RBIs or something. It was insane.
Well, and it's Mayo, Kerstad, Bastayo's there too.
No, Basayo's injured.
Basayo's not there. Okay, so then
he's not there.
Holiday's playing though. You know, even their guys that like aren't
Connor
even
Norby.
Yeah, even their guys that like aren't even like Stowers like isn't even
and Stowers
that highly rated of a prospect that he's just like launching balls.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was like it was like those first 5 guys. It was like the Knights were always down after the first inning because those first 5 guys, either Holiday would walk or hit a double.
Yeah.
And then somebody else would, you know, hit a single. He'd be at third base. And then it would be a sac fly. It'd already be 1-0. Like today was the best case scenario that the Knights had all week, and it was that they gave up 1 run in the first inning. I mean, twice this week they were down 10-0 in the first inning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anywho,
And I think we saw
moving
what
on.
like the other DFA before that, Sammy Peralta got claimed too, right, by Seattle. Is
Yep.
he still on the Mariners? I don't know if they optioned him or if he's pitching
I don't know.
in their bullpen or not. But yeah, I mean the Sox haven't had much luck lately with being able to like get guys through waivers, like off of their 40-man. Guys have been getting picked up.
Yeah, and then we had that. I texted you earlier this week that guy that we traded to the Yankees.
Yeah, Jay Cousins is pitching for
Yeah,
the Yankees. Yeah,
Cousins already pitching for the Yankees. Granted,
yeah.
he gave up a couple of runs in his first appearance with the Yankees. I haven't looked to see if he's pitched with them again, but I mean, yeah, those
Who
guys are just getting eaten up.
who is the next guy that they trade for cash before we record again?
Oh,
I know it's a long list.
I
Your
mean,
guy Chad Cool, like that's what, to Atlanta because they need a starter.
it could be them or the Marlins.
Yeah.
Like you could get a pitching prospect from the Marlins for, Chad Cool and Tuki Toussaint. Like they might ship both of them there, and like they need somebody to eat innings, and obviously they don't want their entire season gone. So, I mean, they could. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're out on the market looking for somebody to come in and put in some serious work.
It's a bad farm system. I know there's a lot. Thank you, Sleepy. So Peralta's in Tacoma. So there's a lot of people who think this is like karma for the way they handled the Kim Ing thing, but I don't know. I personally kind of like the Rays guy that they hired instead. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can say that somebody runs their team badly, but at the end of the day, it's their team to run how they want to, and that just happens to be a decision that they made. And it doesn't seem like they made a terrible decision. It's at least a competent guy that they brought in. So, you got anything else about this awful season that the White Sox are putting together right now?
Yeah, I mean nothing really on the big league side. They're opening what? They're in Cleveland tomorrow for Cleveland's debut. They got some bad news with Bieber, right? We kind of talked about all the guys earlier.
True.
I think mostly for them, like they can't trade him now. That they usually are pretty smart and get well out ahead of that. And this time they're going to get burned by it. It seems like. So yeah, I mentioned something to you earlier. So there's at not cease on Twitter. Okay, mentioned something. He said, so this is in reference to Samuel Zavala, and you showed the home run earlier, and he's had some success already in high A. So 18-year-olds who've had a WRC plus of 140 or higher in A ball, so low A, 200 plate appearances, like as an 18-year-old. Okay, so this is since 2016. So he did it. Samuel Zavala did it, along with Wander Franco, Samuel Basayo, Julio Rodriguez, Jackson Churio, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So pretty good. And then he did go to high A last year after that and wasn't great, in kind of a smaller sample. And now he's in high A for the White Sox. So we will see.
You don't say.
Yeah. Xavier. Hello, sir.
So, read this comment that's in here. Living Lattes here says, we need more Greg Maddux type pitchers. Aaron Nola hasn't had TJ.
Yeah.
So,
Drew Thorpe's, baby.
Drew Thorpe, Mason Adams, Connor McCullough. The White Sox do have a bunch of guys in the minors that do have that kind of, blueprint-ish type thing, where they are command first and not that high velocity, crazy stuff that you're seeing out of some of these guys. So,
Did Kyle Hendricks have it? I don't know. I don't know if he ever did, but it's interesting. But I mean, even like Davis Martin, is kind of one of those guys, and he blew out. I don't think we know, guys. Like I just don't. I just think it's so like some guys just their elbows just go and then they fix it and then hopefully it doesn't go again. Like Lucas Giolito is a scary proposition. I mean, that's the second one. Like, is he a reliever when he returns? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's not a long history of guys with two that come back and they're great. I mean, there's guys pitching in the big leagues with two. There are. Like, and Gio's smart and he'll probably figure it out. But I mean, that's brutal. Like once guys have had it in high school, you're more likely, I feel like, to have a second one because you're going to pitch for so long. So like 10 years in, that's probably about where we are with Giolito. Whereas I kind of feel like if a guy has it in his mid-20s, um, they're probably good. Like Garrett Crochet had it and he looks pretty damn good. So, but he didn't last year. Sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah, that's the odd thing about Crochet is, like he came back from TJ, and usually the first thing to come back is the velocity, and then the second thing to come back is the command. Along with the command,
Yeah.
along with longer stamina on the mound, and he's one of those guys that it just took longer for the velocity to come back because he was pitching 1 inch, one inning relief stints last year, and he was throwing 95. You
Yeah.
know, so.
Well, because what was like, you saw a lot of Peyton Pallette last year. He didn't look like he looked at Arkansas. He was okay, but his stuff was clearly not back all the way. So he should start, early in the week for Winston too. We'll get a chance to see him hopefully.
Yeah, he was another one of those guys that's like kind of flipped. Like his command was okay, but his velocity's not back. It's still not back as far as I've seen. Like we haven't seen any of that 99 stuff that he had when he was with Arkansas.
Right.
I don't know if we ever will. I mean, it could be that he's a guy that lives at 95, 96, and that's just where he ends up.
Yeah.
But it seemed like, the curveball was pretty good last year. So the spin rates are fairly decent. It's just whether or not he can maintain the dominance that he had in college,
right,
with a slightly lower velo.
Well, and
we'll
there's
see.
other pitchers too, like Tanner McDougal. We'll see this week. He did look good last year after. Like his stuff looked like, I think, even better, I would say. So that's a guy that's like a riser in this system. You'll have Grant Taylor pitching the year after it. So, you'll kind of have to see if, is it a velocity issue or a stuff issue for him? I mean, he's a super analytical dude. So I think he'll get the most out of whatever he has. But yeah, we'll see him eventually too.
Yep. So you got anything else this week?
No, I think some, the bonus pool stuff came out for the draft and for international. I kind of want to talk about that next week, give you an opportunity to, we'll show some college highlights of some of these studs that are going to be at the top of the draft. We got a while, but since the qualifying offer stuff is done, we know exactly how much the White Sox have to spend now. So I'm going to write something on it. We'll talk about that next Sunday.
Yep. Chase Burns, Hagen Smith, that kind of thing.
Yeah, those dudes. Yes.
Yeah.
Charlie Condon has 20 bombs.
I mean, yeah, he does. Yeah. I guess, Jim Callis did kind of ease my mind that he's not a first base only guy.
It's probably third right or left. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that made me feel better. That
he looks like
he's
Chris
available.
Bryant.
Yeah.
So the baseball's juiced though. I don't know how much college you've watched. Like the baseball's juiced. Like I've seen this before.
Yeah, I mean it's at least not the dead ball. Did you see that that Shohei hit the other day where he hit it the exact same exit velocity, same launch angle and everything. Last year it went like 423 and this year it went like 350.
Yeah. Andrew Vaughn would rake with this college baseball.
Send him back to college.
Right?
Yeah, get him to get his doctorate now. Use up some of that extra eligibility. So if you guys have not been paying attention to FutureSox in the last week, we have released a bunch of prospect lists, positional prospect lists. We've also released affiliate previews of all of the org affiliates. We've talked to Elijah talked to Dan Haloti with the Cannonballers the other day. James and I talked with Andrew Murphy on Wednesday, and Jeff and Elijah talked to Kurt Bloom with the Barons the other day. Those are all available in podcast form and as video on YouTube. You can find all of this stuff at futuresox.net, where you can find a Patreon link to support us if you like our content. We would appreciate that. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox at James Fox 917. Our FutureSox account is at FutureSox. We have 2 other streams / podcasts on this platform currently going. We have the Roundup with Elijah and Jeff, which is usually on Monday nights, but does not stream. So it comes out on video and podcast form on Tuesday. And on Tuesday night, we have Nick Morawski and Danny Miller with Hot Takes and Heaters, which is live on YouTube and Twitch. Thank you so much for coming and talking White Sox org baseball with us this evening. We will talk to you guys next week. We are on every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and we will talk to you soon.